The fall of the Western Roman Empire was astounding, yet almost all empires fall. Both Persia and China demonstrated this trend as the core power of the empire deteriorated due to numerous factors, and the peripheries increased in power, eventually resulting into a chaotic state in which the empire fell. Many attribute the fall of the Western portion due to greed, ambition, and the power of the Germanic tribesmen. However, the Rome of the Pax Romana would not have fallen so easily. It was years of economic decline, the debasing of the silver coin, militarily, the increasing barbarization of the Roman army, and politically, the split of the Roman empire into two halves that allowed the barbarians to take over the weakened empire. The split carried out by the Emperor Diocletian could be considered the first step in the Roman Empire's destruction. Diocletian took throne when Rome was in a state of chaos. Civil wars, invasions, and diseases plagued the empire. The poor economy wrecked agriculture and trade, and inflation rendered coins basically worthless. The empire had become too large for one ruler to support. Diocletian solved this problem by splitting the empire into two sides, one east and one west. Each side had a separate emperor, called an Augustus, a junior emperor, called a Caesar, and separate administration. The split first seemed like a good idea, but it soon began to cause problems. The West and the East were technically part of the same empire, however they began to function separately. The East had many advantages over the West, including fewer frontiers to defend, more established cities, a larger population, and better access to trade. After the split, the East and West stopped cooperating and started competing. The West was no longer able to rely on the East for money and defense, which caused problems in the economy and military. Without help from the East, the West struggled to defend themselves from barbarians and support themselves financially. This weakened the West, allowing barbarians to take over and ultimately leading to its downfall.
Inflation played a substantial role in the declining economy. Referring back to 2 centuries previously, the Emperor Nero was faced with the issue of the military's demand for more money. His idea was to reduce the amount of silver used in the primary coin, debasing the value. Many emperors adopted this idea in hopes it would increase the amount of money produced. However, the coin began to drop in value instead, and as members of the military demanded for more money, the emperors were forced to debase the value once more. This vicious chain resulted in inflation throughout the entire empire. As the barbarians invaded and wars occurred, Rome found itself depending on income from agriculture, which was hardly sufficient enough to fund their expenditures. Heavy taxation on small farmers and peasants caused many to leave their farms and seek refuge under larger landowners. There were less land-independent farmers and an increase in large estate owners. This resulted into less agricultural productivity. The buying power of the consumers was reduced, and merchants and tradesmen were unable to find things to trade in the city. It led to a reduction in the previously flourishing trade system that provided Rome with a strong economy. Cities became abandoned, and industrial strength was greatly weakened. As a result of the split, Diocletian and Constantine established major changes in prospect that would stabilize Rome. For example, they doubled the size of their army, which resulted in higher taxation. Diocletian also administered a new tax plan, which was incredibly detailed, entailing the most minute components. However, due to the unreliability of transportation and expenses in traveling, it was difficult to execute this plan due to the high costs. The split also caused a more symbolic issue. The two halves, rather than seeing themselves as one empire, saw themselves as two separate entities. Undoubtedly, the eastern half was wealthier and much more secure. It often saw its western half dependent on it for more money, eventually refusing to aid the West financially.
The economy's fall was most problematic for Rome's military, who were demanding higher wages in a society plagued with inflation. The military was essential to the protection of central power, but maintaining it was costly and ensured that the government never had secure income. The Roman army was powerful enough so that it was very dangerous for Rome to maintain, even though it was needed for protection. Soldiers had the power to demand higher wages, but the economy being weak in Rome at the time due to less tax revenue led to these wages being unrealistic or overly costly for the Roman government. When Rome refused to give them a request, there were rebellions and political violence and strife. Essentially, internalized conflicts weakened the core from the inside and increased the power of the peripheries. The Western Roman Empire also struggled since their military wasn't more loyal to Rome. This was due to a less professionalized, less Roman, less happy army. Plague and economic struggles led to depopulation in the West. As the military was getting weaker and smaller, a cheap solution was to recruit barbarians to join their army. It seemed like a win-win situation as the barbarians had previously often attacked their borders. By allowing them to join the army, they would stop attacking the borders and would fight for Rome. Germanic tribesmen were eager to join after being pushed west by eastern tribes, such as the Huns. They did not arrive to conquer Rome, rather they joined to integrate themselves with large incursions. However, the Germanic tribesmen were not always loyal to the empire. Like the previous Roman army, they demanded for higher wages. As a result, they would threaten and rebel against the empire. This situation caused even more strife within the army. Timing was perfect for the Germanic tribesmen as they had already integrated into the Roman army, and the borders were weakened.
Oh crap, wait, hold on. Oh my god. As mentioned earlier, Rome's solution to their military issues was to recruit the barbarians to join their own army. While the military continually lost men due to depopulation and a weakened army, Rome was forced to recruit the men they had fought against for their own forces. Not only did these barbarians refuse to be trained and disciplined, they would also frequently try to put their own leaders in power. This led to frequent fighting between the military and revolts and barbarians trying to invade from the frontiers. Constantine, as mentioned, had also allowed barbarians to settle in Rome, albeit without legal status or Roman titles. Perhaps the most troublesome tribe, however, was the Visigoths. Honorius, 2 emperors after Constantine, was widely regarded as incompetent. Because of the fact, his section of the empire was taken over by Stilicho, the commander of the army and one of the Goths. Already a bad situation, such was made worse by Stilicho's assassination. Afterwards, the Visigoths ransacked Rome. The Romans had a weakened army and a decaying society. Barbarians also drove the split between the East and the West deeper, as the East had less to guard against barbarians and thus could focus their resources on farming and creating a stable government income. The East had natural protection against invaders, such as the Caucasus Mountains and the Black Sea. The West had to protect the front lines of the Rhine and the Danube rivers, whereas the East only had to provide middle protection to the lower Danube. The West lost many more troops and resources defending themselves, and the West developed complex societies far later than the East.
As of all empires, Rome's fall was disastrous and inevitable. However, what makes Rome so appealing to historians is that Rome fell due to not 1 or 2 faults, but several. All destructive forces, both inside and outside of Rome, worked together to bring it down over several centuries. As Rome suffered so soon to the Pax Romana, one wonders what truly caused the downfall of such a prospering empire, only a few centuries after its golden age. The downfall of the Roman Empire is similar to the falls of the Chinese and Persian empires, which were also due to both external and internal forces. Persia was ultimately conquered by Alexander the Great. However, civil wars and economic problems riddled the empire long before the fact. Similarly, in China, succession disputes and class issues led to the fall of the empire. As this trend is demonstrated in so many great empires, it is the realization that there are multiple factors at work in order for an empire to fall that is astounding. We must realize that empires fall due to many causes, and that greed and ambition can only play so much of a role.